Hello there. In this video, I will be going over the third assignment for Applied Data Sciences, in which we use this test.csv file and do a whole slew of operations to it using pandas functions for data frames. Without further ado, let's get into the code. So first off, we import google.colab to be able to mount the Google Drive and import pandas for being able to do those operations. Then we load in the data frame into this variable. Then we list off the first 5 rows, as you can see here. Then we rename the columns to more appropriate column names, so ID, range, value, machine type, and zip code. And we use in-place equal true so that it's a permanent change. And as we can see, that the columns have been permanently changed. In this instance, we are inserting my name and student ID into the data frame and setting the rest of the values as not a number. And as you can see with the listing here, that my name and student ID are present within the data frame. The following piece of code is to display all elements from the data frame except for the first element being my student name and student number. And as you can see, we see all elements from element 1 all the way to element 950. Next up, we display the type of the data frame, which we can see that it's classified as pandas.core.frame.dataframe. Following that, showing 2 different approaches to displaying columns. The first one is bracket notation, which we obviously use square brackets and a string to display the column. And then dot notation, where we just use the myDataFrame variable dot and then the column name. And as you'll see in an example where bracket notation is favored over dot notation. Next up, we display the type for the value column, in which it is a Panda Core series. And now we have our example use case of why bracket notation is preferred over dot notation, specifically when it comes to column names that contain a space in them. As dot notation, that wouldn't work, as it would be treated as a separate word. But because bracket notation uses strings, that's not much of a problem. And here we are able to display the zip code column using the bracket notation. Following that, we have the concatenation section, in which we create a brand series by combining the machine type column and the zip code column set as string, and putting an underscore in between them for formatting reasons. And we display that, and we can clearly see what we have created. Now for calculations. Using the range column and the volume column, we calculate the total for the range and the value. And as you can see, all elements are displayed, including the not a number one. Anyway, then we have the usages of myDataFrame.head.describe. And these are the outcomes of all of those. Next up, we have myDataFrame.rename. We are to rename the ID as myID, but because we don't use in place, it changes practically nothing. Then the following we include in place and set it true, and as you can see, it is changed to myID. Next up, we list off the columns, in which we can definitely see that the change has indeed occurred. Now we insert the brand and total objects we created earlier to the end of it, the data frame, and as you can see that we have the brand and total columns. Next up, we simply replace the underscore with a space for the brand. So now there is a space instead of an underscore. Here we drop the brand and total using axis 1 and in place is equal to true so that it is a permanent change. Next, we drop 2 elements from rows 3 and 5, set it to in place as true, and we display the head 5. And then as we can see here, we do not see rows 3 and 5, but instead see row 6 for the last one. Next up, we're sorting the values using the sort values, ascending is equal to true. And as you can see, it displays it in this simple format. Then we do essentially the same thing, but in a different approach by using the by attribute. And as you can see, it displays it in the more formal data frame way of seeing the column names and the just yeah. Then we do pretty much the same as this, but use in place equal to true, so that this is saved, so that every time we reference the data frame, it is in the ascending way. And then here we do similar thing, but use not one but two columns, range and value, for the sort values. Ascending is equal to true, so and we get this. And then for this one, we're doing the opposite of the previous one, where we're having it as descending, with the ascending flag as false. And as we can see, it is descending the values, so starting from the highest and going down to the lowest. Next, we display rows that have ranges between 250 and 350. And as you can see, we don't see anything lower than 250 or greater than 350. And then in here, we do the same thing, but we then sort the values by range and setting ascending to true, so that we start from the lowest range and move up to the higher end range. And then here, we filter the data frame, again using the range values, and store it in a filtered df variable, and then printing out only the myID and value aspects of the filter data frame, as you can see here. And then version 2 of the filtered data frame uses the original filter data frame, but checks for if the machine type is equal to H, and then we display the filter data frame version 2, myID, value, and machine type. And as you can see, all of the rows listed have a machine type of H. And then for filter data frame version 3, similar to filter data frame version 2, we are checking for if the machine type is H or R or X, and then we display that, and we can clearly see that all listings here have a machine type of either H, R, or X. And then lastly, but not least, we display the column data types, the D types, and we display the numerical columns, specifically ones that are of the int and float variety. And so the first one, we can see the different data types for all of the columns. And then the second is the numerical columns, so range, value, and zip code. Although I don't know why zip code got included, but that is what it is. And that is all there is to the code explanation. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see y'all next time.